Welcome to my Asshole Podcast. Let's get into it. Today is Thursday, and yes, I am filming this on a Thursday. Usually I don't do that. Usually I film these episodes ahead just because I have to work through the week. But I did not film a Thursday episode, so this one's going to come out late. So hopefully you guys weren't anticipating a Thursday episode early like normal. I am so sorry, but your boy is gonna get a Thursday episode out to you guys. I know you guys want to see what happens in A Court of Thorns and Roses for chapters 13 and 14, and you're wondering where that's at too. We're gonna get to that, but before we do that, we're gonna get into an interesting thread that I have for you guys. It's called "What's a Creepy Fact You Wish You Never Learned?" So we're gonna get into that thread right now, and then we'll hop into our book, and then we'll be all Gucci. All right. Dead bodies moan and grunt when you move them. I was a paramedic and firefighter for 21 years. I was around a lot of dead people. Okay. Wow. Okay. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do that job. Even like a mortician. I don't think I could fucking be a mortician either, because dead bodies, that would just be weird. You know, I mean, I've never really seen like a dead human. You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe you people out there have, but that would freak me out. It's kind of like, for me, when I see blood, I get squeamish. So I think I would feel the same way with like a dead body. I don't know. My father's school did a guided tour through the woods, searching and learning about local herbs. A few years later, my father was still a child. Police showed up and asked him if he recognized the man in the picture that they showed him. My father explained that he was the herbalist tour guide. Apparently, the guy had murdered several boys and had my father's name and address in his car. Oh, shit. The police had caught the guy by this point. I think he killed himself or died in suspicious circumstances. Yo! Talk about you think you know somebody. What the fuck? This dude, like, I think they worked alongside each other because he said he was a herbalist. So I'm sure they worked alongside each other to some degree. And all of a sudden he found out this man's a fucking murderer. That is crazy, dude. Glad your dad made it out, though. God damn. A non-zero number of farmers go missing yearly from pigs. They will eat just about anything. So you're saying farmers get eaten by their own pigs sometimes? That's crazy. We gotta look that up. I gotta see how many farmers a year get eaten by pigs. You know, that's not a question you really ask yourself every day. Farmers get eaten by pigs a year. How many farmers get eaten by pigs? Oh, shit. In a year. Huh. Let me see. So, I guess apparently 60 to 69 farmers, yeah, somewhere around there, yeah, get eaten by pigs a year. So about 60 to 70 farmers a year get eaten by pigs. That's crazy, son. That is crazy. Now, is it a thing where it's like the farmer dies, or do the pigs just get hungry and start eating? You know, like, questions. That is, wow. Okay. That sure is a creepy fact. All right, the inside of a turtle's mouth / throat looks like something straight out of a horror movie / monster, absolutely covered in spines. They swallow a lot of seawater when eating food, which they then vomit back out. The spines keep food in, but let the water out. Really? Okay. I never knew that. So apparently when they're eating shit underwater, they'll eat it and then they'll throw up the water, but because they have these spines in their throats, it keeps the food in and lets the water. That's a crazy fact. Man, I guarantee you there was a guy that put his penis in there. Guarantee, and he couldn't get it out. I guarantee it. Either that or his penis is in shreds. I guarantee you at least one person in the world has done that. That there is literally nowhere in your house that you can store your toothbrush without it getting fecal matter on it. Thanks, Mythbusters. Really? Oh. I mean, look, the whole, like, close the toilet lid before you flush the toilet. Not like, man, come on. If I'm being honest with you, like, if you use a public restroom, well, you know, there's doo-doo particles all over that public restroom. Think about it. All the people that have taken doo-doos in there, yeah, man, their doo-doo particles are all just mixed up and all over the walls and the door handle and everything. Like, and then it's on the what is that thing called? The sink and all that. Like, come on, man. You know, for me, I look, as long as I can't see it, it don't exist. It doesn't exist. As long as I can't see it, it don't exist. It's fine. Doo-doo particles are not there. There's no doo-doo, no doo-doo particles. We're good. You know, I think some of y'all people just be clean freaks and y'all just be going too far on that, man. That one misfolded protein can wind up rendering a brain about as useful as rotting cheese. Huh. Okay. Well, I'm not a scientist on this one. Apparently, misfolded protein can just kill your brain. That's kind of crazy. How would you know if it was unfolded or misfolded or not? How would you know? You know what I mean? Like, you're just scooping your normal, you know, making you shake. You just like, open that bad boy up and you drink it. And then I know you're just like, you know? Damn. I mean, I guess there's scary shit to everything, but... Well, all of these make my flatworm tidbits seem meek. When flatworms mate, two males use their bifurcated penises to fence to one another. So they pretty much docking. With the winner or the flatworm who stabs the other with its penis dagger remains the male, while the loser becomes the female and will be impregnated. What?
What did he say?
So all these worms are born dudes, and then they dock penises, and they fight to see who is going to be the male and who's going to be the female. So it's all gay relationships, and then until one guy turns another guy into a trans woman or a trans flatworm. That is crazy. Wow. Damn, nature, you scary, bro. What in the fuck? Like,
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
that's crazy. That is crazy. Hopefully y'all learning something, because I am shit. Sometimes when you have a sharp pain in your chest, like a lung area when breathing in, could be there's not enough fluid around the lung and it got stuck to a rib, or your diaphragm isn't in the correct place. Whoa. Okay. I have this sometimes, where there's sometimes where I'm just breathing normal, doing my thing, and then I'm like, oh, and it's like sharp, as if somebody's like fucking stabbing me. Not like with a knife, but more of just like something like a pins and needle kind of stab, and it hurts, and you're like, you know, okay, so that's what it is then. I always thought something was wrong with me, you know, but I guess that's what happens. There's not enough fluid around the lung, and so it gets stuck to your rib. That's crazy. Or your diaphragm moves out of place. Wow. Absolutely wow. Okay, we learning some shit, man. Some people are born with a malformed mass of veins in their brain called an AVM, and they have no idea unless it's seen on a CT or an MRI. Then one day it can burst without warning, and that happy, healthy person can die, suffer brain damage, paralysis, etc. No warning. This happened to my 22-year-old niece yesterday. She's in a coma now. It's heartbreaking. What in the fuck is going on? You can be born with this, and you don't even know you have it until the motherfucker blows up in your head, and you're a vegetable, or by the grace of God, they somehow catch it. And then if they do catch it, it's like, what can they do about it? Can they like treat it? Can they stop it from bursting? Can they prevent me from becoming a vegetable? Shit, do I have it? Do you have it? Man, that kind of freaks you out a little bit. It makes you think right now. You're probably on your way to work or something, or you're just casually listening to this podcast and you're thinking to myself, like, damn, I wonder if I got them veins. Holy shit. I gotta go get a CT or an MRI. Because if I have that shit and my shit just blows up, that's gonna suck. I'm gonna be a vegetable. Damn, son. Wow. Okay. A chainsaw was invented by two doctors to assist in childbirth. Sawing through a pelvic bone gives a mother and the baby some chance of survival if the baby is too big. Yo. Imagine. You're about to have a baby, and the doctor rocks up in the room, and he says, he's like, all right, let's get that baby on out of here. Just going at your woman's pelvic bone to get the baby out with a fucking chainsaw. Wow. I could see why women back then didn't survive childbirth, because how the fuck are they surviving a chainsaw to the pelvic bone? Come on, man. Let's be real here. Oh my goodness. Don't know if it's true, but once read the last thing that stops when you die is your hearing. Really? Wow. That is good to kind of know, just because when you do have a relative that's passing away, you know, you do tell them that you love them and stuff like that. And at least they can hear that before they go, you know, and they're able to kind of hear everything that's going on, hear you crying, and you know what I mean? And they really know, like, holy shit, I meant something. Yeah. So that is, I guess, good to know in that sense, that your hearing is the last thing to go. I don't know if it's true, though. They did say, you know, maybe. But I would hope so. I would hope so, because of all the family members that have passed away, you know, you try to, like, say you love them and, you know, you go into a better place, all that stuff, you know what I mean? And they can hear it. Oh, man. Learning that some plants can actually communicate with each other. Suddenly, my herb garden feels a lot more like a gossip column. She feels like her garden's talking shit about her. They're like, where that bitch at with my water? Damn. Like, who does she think she is? All right. Like, right? Who the hell she think she is, man? Like, I ain't getting no sun up in this camp. Fuck we talking about? I've been in the shade for weeks. Oh, man. That's funny. The African eye worm can invade the human eye. Adults are between 1 and 2.5 inches long. What? That worm is going where? No. No. I am not about to be sleeping in my little cot, and then there's this fat ass worm just crawling its way into my eyesight. No. No, 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 no. Africa, you need to fix that. You need to fix that, my guys. Toronto. Fuck we talking about? Okay, I learned that some people will use any hole in a sexual way. Oh. Including a surgical hole in the stomach to collect poop into a bag, a colostomy bag. Additionally, some folks with these kinds of holes will prostitute themselves out for use of that hole. How do we know? They come in with infections in these holes and own up to the behavior. I also learned this sexual act is called a Philly sidecar.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Imagine some dude you know is just like, yo, bruh, I was with this girl, right? And I found out she had a hole in her hip, yo. And I was like, hey, you want to do something with that? And he was like, I put my dick in it, son. Put my dick in it. And I nutted in her side. Like,
Bruh. What?
That's crazy. I don't think anybody knew that. I didn't know that. Like, what the fuck? What in the hell are people? People are just so bored, bro. They are so bored of ordinary sex and regular sex and all that kind of stuff. They're like, missionary, nah. Doggy, nah. You know, a little side action, nah. They're like, it's all about that Philly sidecar, son. Like, what in the hell? All right. Teach its own, I guess. I had to have a C-section when our daughter was born and heard one doctor say to the other, doctor, pass me the uterus. I'm gonna clean it. Still don't know whether my uterus was actually lifted out. Still don't want to know. Update, I am thankfully not as squeamish as my posts have made me look. When I heard that sentence, I immediately thought, wow, if I were more squeamish, I would probably be horrified right now / crying. I know that people are working in the medical field consider this normal. Oh, no. Was it your uterus or not? Maybe it was. I don't know. I don't know how C-sections work. You guys let me know in the comments how that works. Do they take out your uterus? Is that a whole thing where they just kind of pull the baby out and they're like, well, the uterus is coming along with, you know? Then they're like, clean that bitch up and throw it in a jar and give it back to her or something. You know, like, what the fuck? All right, on to the next, I guess. Honestly, what a newborn horse hooves look like. Traumatized for months after I had just given birth myself. Luckily, I did not have a horse baby. Okay. Apparently, newborn horse hooves are very traumatizing looking. Okay. Let's Google this. Why not? Let's Google this. Let's see what's up. We have baby horse hooves. All right. Okay. I mean, that does look kind of disgusting. Yeah. That does look kind of disgusting. Yeah, for you audio listeners, Google baby horse hooves, you know, and you'll see what we're seeing. 'Cause yeah, that looks pretty terrifying. That looks like something out of a fucking alien movie, if I'm being real with you. But okay. Okay. Shit. You know, why not? Why not? You've probably heard a fact about how 70% of the human body is water. We basically know this because of a Japanese general who roasted people in an oven. What the hell? So are you saying he was the Hitler before Hitler? You know? That's what I'm trying to get. Like, was he the Hitler before Hitler? Was this man oven baking people before Hitler was oven baking people? It could have been possible. Either that or shit, you know. Oh, Hitler called up that Japanese dude and was like, hey, yo, you want my people oven recipe, dog? He's like, I got some bomb shit going on over here. And he was like, oh, yeah, very much I like the recipe for oven people. And he was like, oh, say less, my guy. Guten Tag. Yeah. I don't know. But all right, man. The president of Argentina and his wife kept Eva Person's dead body just chilling at the breakfast table.
What?
Why? For what reason? What reason are they keeping a dead body at a table? Like, for what? For what? Okay, maybe they're just like, oh yeah, we love you and all of your stuff, you're great, I love you so much, oh my god, you're the best ever. Like, honey, she's dead. I'm like, no, she's having a good time, eat your food. That would just be weird to see. Like, say you were at another table and you're just like, oh my god, they're having lunch or they're having breakfast with a fucking dead person. Like, holy shit. Imagine getting that on Instagram. Jesus Christ. That'd be crazy. All right, commented this before, but if you have abdominal surgery and the surgeon needs your intestines out of the way, they don't try to get them back in exactly as they were? Huh? They can put them in pretty much any old way and they sort themselves out. Then freaked out even more when someone else comments that you can quite often feel them wriggling themselves back into position.
What?
That's crazy. So the human intestines, you can jumble them all up and then your body's just going to naturally move them back to where they should be. Yo, what? That's wow. Wow. Ay. Go away. Okay. Wow. That is something else that we definitely learning some shit today. I'm gonna do 3 more and then we're gonna get on to our chapters. Dolphins are known to be quite intelligent, but they can also be cruel. In some cases, they've been documented killing baby dolphins of other pods, seemingly for fun. Wow. So they just go over to other groups of dolphins and they're like, you know what? Fuck that kid over there. He's like, yeah, fuck that kid. And they just take the baby and I don't know what they do. I don't know how they kill it. Maybe they just like keep it underwater and it suffocates because it can't go up and breathe. And then it just suffocates and dies. Like, wow. Okay. Okay, on to our next one. We got 2 more. Finding out that statistically, you're more likely to get struck by lightning than win the lottery. What? Guess I'll stick to my day job as a professional lottery player. That's crazy. Wow, you have a higher chance of getting struck by lightning than you do winning the lottery. That's crazy. But hey, I'm going to still play though, because you never know, baby. One day I might win the lottery and get struck by lightning all on the same day. You never know. You never know. All right. Ascaris worms are a type of large parasitic roundworm that make their home in the human digestive tract. They are endemic in many parts of the world. I used to work at a hospital where we took a lot of patients from very poor and remote places, especially Central America, where roundworm infection is common. When you put those patients under for surgery, the anesthesia causes their blood to become slightly alkaline, which the worms hate. So after a few minutes, they will start to come out of every orifice in the body, nose, mouth, butthole. And I'm talking full-size worms that look like full-size worm that look just like earthworms. It is no cap, one of the grossest things you can imagine. You give these patients a drug called benazole, they poop dead worms for 3 days, and then they're fine.
What did he say?
Imagine shitting worms for 3 days. Imagine calling out of work for 3 days and they're just like, yo, man, where you been? Are you good? And it's like, oh, bro, I was shitting worms for 3 days. And they're like, you were what? I was like, yeah, bro, I was shitting worms for 3 days. You were eating worms or something? Nah, bro. Nah, they kind of crawled into me, you know. Crawled in my nose, my mouth, and my ears. Yeah, I mean, up my butthole, my pee hole, all that shit, man. You know, and then they found their way to my intestines, and then I took this medicine, and then it made me doo-doo worms for 3 days. You know what I mean? It's just casual shit. You know what I mean? I'd be like,
what did he say?
because there's no way you're telling me you just doo-dooed worms for 3 days straight. That's crazy. That's crazy, brother. All right, but that's going to go ahead and be that thread today, man. We definitely learned a lot of new things about this wild and crazy world that we live in. I'm telling you, most of that shit I didn't even know. Like the baby hooves thing, didn't know about that. The worms thing is crazy, especially the ones where they dock each other's penises and then they fight to see who's the girl. That's wild to me. Absolutely wild. Yeah, man, it's crazy shit. Crazy shit, man. Hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that thread. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into the announcements super quick. Then we're going to hop into chapters 13 and 14 of A Court of Thorns and Roses. And then we'll close this bad boy out. Again, sorry for having this episode out late. I was on vacation in Vegas. It was hot as balls. And I'm just glad to be back. Yeah, I've been missing my own bed. 100%. Oh my God, there's just something about your own bed that is just magnifique. Oh my God, I swear to God, being in a hotel, it's nice, it's cool, you know, accommodating, it's all fine. But if I'm being honest with you, I'm the type of person I don't really like spending money like that. And yeah, I spent way too much money. So yeah, you know, yeah. So that's what that is. But Patreon.com/MyLastHolePodcast. If you want to get an exclusive episode every single Friday, as well as having your scenario be featured on the show for Tuesday and Sunday. Get on the Patreon, man. $3 a month. That's all I ask for. And you guys' scenarios get priority over scenarios that are sent through Instagram and TikTok. Audio listeners, keep downloading the podcast. Appreciate seeing the numbers go up and up and up. It shows that you guys are supporting the show every single Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Love you guys so much for all that support. If you haven't rated the podcast already, please do. 5 stars is preferable, but whatever you want to rate it with your chest. If you want to help on the free 99 side of things, all right, the free 99 side of things. Follow us on TikTok as well as Instagram. I have the link tree down in the description. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube for more of the video side of it. If you wanted to see the baby hooves, go ahead and watch it on YouTube, or just Google it. It's up to you. But I'd appreciate it if you do subscribe. It does help out a lot. Even if you don't watch over there, just subscribing does help. I appreciate you guys so much. If you guys did miss Haunting Adeline, I do have the full playlist in the description. There will be a Spotify playlist is in the description, and then on the YouTube page will be the YouTube version of it. Honestly, go to the Spotify version. It's a lot better. It's a lot higher quality than the YouTube version, but it's up to you guys. Also, if you haven't gotten caught up with A Court of Thorns and Roses, there will be a playlist down there as well with all of the episodes and all of the chapters up until chapter 12, because we are doing 13 and 14 today. So, and this episode will go on to that playlist. So, you know, if you're just catching up, you'll have this episode on there too. Without further ado, though, let's get into the book. And I will swap you guys over.
Chapter 13. Tamlin waved his hand, and 100 candles sprang to life. Whatever Lucian had said about magic being drained and off-kilter thanks to the blight clearly hadn't affected Tamlin as dramatically. Or perhaps he'd been far more powerful to start with, if he could transform his sentries into wolves whenever he pleased. The tang of magic stung my senses, but I kept my chin high. That is, until I peered inside. My palms began sweating as I took in the enormous, opulent study. Tomes lined each wall like the soldiers of a silent army, and couches, desks, and rich rugs were scattered throughout the room. But it had been over a week since I left my family. Though my father had said never to return, though my vow to my mother was fulfilled, I could at least let them know I was safe, relatively safe, and warn them about the sickness sweeping across Prithian that might someday soon cross the wall. There was only one method to convey it. "Do you need anything else?" Tamlin asked, and I jerked. He still stood behind me. "No," I said, striding into the study. I couldn't think about the casual power he'd just shown, the graceful carelessness with which he'd brought so many flames to life. I had to focus on the task at hand. It wasn't entirely my fault that I was scarcely able to read. Before our downfall, my mother had sorely neglected our education, not bothering to hire a governess. And after poverty struck, and my elder sisters, who could read and write, deemed the village school beneath us, they didn't bother to teach me. I could read enough to function, enough to form my letters, but so poorly that even signing my name was mortifying. It was bad enough that Tamlin knew. I would think about how to get the letter to one of them once it was finished. Perhaps I could beg a favor of him, or Lucian. Asking them to write it would be too humiliating. I could hear their words. Typical, ignorant human. And since Lucian seemed convinced that I would turn spy the moment I could, he would no doubt burn the letter, and any I tried to write after. So I'd have to learn myself. "I'll leave you to it then," Tamlin said as our silence became too prolonged, too tense. I didn't move until he'd closed the doors, shutting me inside. My heartbeat pulsed throughout my body as I approached a shelf. I had to take a break for dinner and to sleep, but I was back in the study before the dawn had fully risen. I'd found a small writing desk in a corner and gathered papers and ink. My finger traced a line of text, and I whispered the words. She grabbed her shoe, standing from her I sat back in my chair and pressed the heels of my palms into my eyes. When I felt less near to ripping out my hair, I took the quill and underlined the word, position. With a shaking hand, I did my best to copy letter after letter onto the ever-growing list I kept beside the book. There were at least 40 words on it, their letters malformed and barely legible. I would look up their pronunciations later. I rose from the chair, needing to stretch my legs, my spine, or just to get away from that lengthy list of words I didn't know how to pronounce and the permanent heat that now warmed my face and neck. I suppose the study was more of a library, as I couldn't see any of the walls thanks to the small labyrinth of stacks flanking the main area and a mezzanine dangling above, covered wall to wall in books. But study sounded less intimidating. I meandered through some of the stacks, following a trickle of sunlight to a bank of windows on the far side. I found myself overlooking a rose garden, filled with dozens of hues of crimson and pink and white and yellow. I might have allowed myself a moment to take in the colors, gleaming with dew under the morning sun, had I not glimpsed the painting that stretched along the wall beside the windows. Not a painting, I thought, blinking as I stepped back to view its massive expanse. No, it was... I searched for the word in that half-forgotten part of my mind. Mural. That's what it was. At first, I could do nothing but stare at its size, the ambition of it, at the fact that this masterpiece was tucked back here for no one to ever see, as if it was nothing, absolutely nothing, to create something like this. It told a story with the way colors and shapes and light flowed, the way tone shifted across the mural. The story of Prithian. It began with a cauldron. A mighty black cauldron held by glowing, slender female hands in a starry, endless night. Those hands tipped it over, golden, sparkling liquid pouring out over the lip. No, not sparkling, but effervescent, with small symbols, perhaps of some ancient fairy language. Whatever was written there, whatever it was, the contents of the cauldron were dumped into the void below, pooling on the earth to form our world. The map spanned the entirety of our world, not just the land on which we stood, but also the seas and the larger continents beyond. Each territory was marked and colored, some with intricate, ornate depictions of the beings who had once ruled over lands that now belonged to humans. All of it, I remembered with a shudder. All of the world had once been theirs, as far as they believed, crafted for them by the bearer of the cauldron. There was no mention of humans, no sign of us here. I supposed we'd been as low as pigs to them. It was hard to look at the next panel. It was so simple, yet so detailed, that for a moment I stood there on that battlefield, feeling the texture of the bloodied mud beneath me, shoulder to shoulder with the thousands of other human soldiers lined up, facing the fairy hordes who charged at us. A moment of pause before the slaughter. The humans' arrows and swords seemed so pointless against the high fae in their glimmering armor, or the fairies bristling with claws and fangs. I knew without another panel to explicitly show me, the humans hadn't survived that particular battle. The smear of black on the panel beside it, tinged with glimmers of red, said enough. Then another map of a much reduced fairy realm. Northern territories had been cut up and divided to make room for the high fae, who had lost their lands to the south of the wall. Everything north of the wall went to them. Everything south was left as a blur of nothing. A decimated, forgotten world, as if the painter couldn't be bothered to render it. I scanned the various lands and territories now given to the high fae. Still so much territory, such monstrous power spread across the entire northern part of our world. I knew they were ruled by kings or queens or councils or empresses, but I'd never seen a representation of it, of how much they'd been forced to concede to the south, and how crammed their lands now were in comparison. Our massive island had fared well for Prithian by comparison, with only the bottom tip given over to us miserable humans. The bulk of the sacrifice was borne by the southernmost of the 7 territories, a territory painted with crocuses and lambs and roses. Spring lands. I took a step closer until I could see the dark, ugly smear that acted as the wall, another spiteful touch by the painter. No markers in the human realm, Nothing to indicate any of the larger towns or centers, but I found the rough area where our village was, and the woods that separated it from the wall. Those 2 days' journey seemed so small, too small compared to the power lurking above us. I traced a line, my finger hovering over the paint, up over the wall into these lands, the lands of the spring court. Again, no markers, but it was filled with touches of spring. Trees in bloom, fickle storms, young animals. At least I was to live out my days in one of the more moderate courts, weather-wise. A small consolation. I looked northward and stepped back again. The 6 other courts of Prithian occupied a patchwork of territories. Autumn, summer, and winter were easy enough to pick out. Then above them, 2 glowing courts. The southernmost one a softer, redder palette, the Dawn Court. Above, in bright gold and yellow and blue, the Day Court. And above that, perched in a frozen, mountainous spread of darkness and stars, the sprawling, massive territory of the Night Court. There were things in the shadows between those mountains, little eyes, gleaming teeth, a land of lethal beauty. The hair on my arms rose. I might have examined the other kingdoms across the seas that flanked our land, like the isolated fairy kingdom to the west that seemed to have gotten away with no territory loss and was still law unto itself, had I not looked to the heart of that beautiful living map. In the center of the land, as if it were the core around which everything else had spread, or perhaps the place where the cauldron's liquid had first touched, was a small, snowy mountain range. From it arose a mammoth solitary peak, bald of snow, bald of life, as if the elements refused to touch it. There were no more clues about what it might be, nothing to indicate its importance, and I supposed that the viewers were already supposed to know. This was not a mural for human eyes. With that thought, I went back to my little table. At least I'd learned the layout of their lands, and I knew to never, ever go north. I eased into my seat and found my place in the book, my face warming as I glanced at the illustrations scattered throughout. A children's book, and yet I could scarcely make it through its 20 or so pages. Why did Tamlin have children's books in his library? Were they from his own childhood, or in anticipation of children to come? It didn't matter. I couldn't even read them. I hated the smell of these books, the decaying rot of the pages, the mocking whisper of the paper, the rough skin of the binding. I looked at the piece of paper, at all those words I didn't know. I bunched my list in my hand, crumpling the paper into a ball, and chucked it into the rubbish bin. I could help you to write to them, if that's why you're in here. I jerked back in my seat, almost knocking over the chair, and whirled to find Tamlin behind me, a stack of books in his arms. I pushed back against the heat rising in my cheeks and ears, the panic at the information he might be guessing I'd been trying to send. Help? You mean a fairy is passing up the opportunity to mock an ignorant mortal? He set the books down on the table, his jaw tight. I couldn't read the titles glinting on the leather spines. Why should I mock you for a shortcoming that isn't your fault? Let me help you. I owe you for the hand. Shortcoming. It was a shortcoming. Yet it was one thing to bandage his hand, to talk to him as if he wasn't a predator built to kill and destroy, but to reveal how little I truly knew, to let him see that part of me that was still a child, unfinished and raw. His face was unreadable. Though there had been no pity in his voice, I straightened. I'm fine. You think I've got nothing better to do with my time than come up with elaborate ways to humiliate you? I thought of that smear of nothing that the painter had used to render the human lands and didn't have an answer. At least, not one that was polite. I'd given enough already to them. To him. Tamlin shook his head. So you'll let Lucian take you on hunts, and... Lucian, I interrupted quietly, but not softly. Doesn't pretend to be anything but what he is. What's that supposed to mean? He growled, but his claws stayed retracted even as he clenched his hands into fists at his sides. I was definitely walking a dangerous line, but I didn't care. Even if he'd offered me sanctuary, I didn't have to fall at his feet. It means, I said with that same cold quiet, that I don't know you. I don't know who you are or what you really are or what you want. It means you don't trust me. How can I trust a fairy? Don't you delight in killing and tricking us? His snarl set the flames of the candles guttering. You aren't what I had in mind for a human, believe me. I could almost feel the wound deep in my chest as it ripped open and all those awful silent words came pouring out. Illiterate, ignorant, unremarkable, proud, cold. All spoken from Nesta's mouth, all echoing in my head with her sneering voice. I pinched my lips together. He winced and lifted a hand slightly, as if about to reach for me. Feyre, he began, softly enough that I just shook my head and left the room. He didn't stop me. But that afternoon, when I went to retrieve my crumpled list from the wastebasket, it was gone. And my pile of books had been disturbed, the titles out of order. It had probably been a servant, I assured myself, calming the tightness in my chest. Just Alice, or some other bird-masked fairy cleaning up. I hadn't written anything incriminating. There was no way he knew I'd been trying to warn my family. I doubted he would punish me for it, but our conversation earlier had been bad enough. Still, my hands were unsteady as I took my seat at the little desk and found my place in the book I'd used that morning. I knew it was shameful to mark the books with ink, but if Tamlin could afford gold plates, he could replace a book or two. I stared at the book without seeing the jumble of letters. Maybe I was a fool for not accepting his help, for not swallowing my pride and having him write the letter in a few moments. Not even a letter of warning, but just to let them know I was safe. If he had better things to do with his time than come up with ways to embarrass me, then surely he had better things to do than help me write letters to my family. And yet, he'd offered. A nearby clock chimed the hour. Shortcoming. Another one of my shortcomings. I rubbed my brows with my thumb and forefinger. I'd been equally foolish for feeling a shred of pity for him, for the lone, brooding fairy, for someone I had so stupidly thought would really care if he met someone who perhaps felt the same, perhaps understood, in my ignorant, insignificant human way, what it was like to bear the weight of caring for others. I should have let his hand bleed that night, should have known better than to think that maybe there would be someone, human or fairy or whatever, who could understand what my life, what I had become these past few years. A minute passed, then another. Fairies might not be able to lie, but they could certainly withhold information. Tamlin, Lucian, and Alice had done their best not to answer my specific questions. Knowing more about the blight that threatened them, knowing anything about it, where it had come from, what else it could do, and especially what it could do to a human, was worth my time to learn. and if there was a chance that they might possess some knowledge about a forgotten loophole of that damned treaty, if they knew some way to pay the debt I owed and return me to my family so I might warn them about the blight myself, I had to risk it. 20 minutes later, I had tracked down Lucian in his bedroom. I'd marked on my little map where it was, in a separate wing on the second level, far from mine, and after searching his usual haunts, it was the last place to look. I knocked on the white-painted double doors. "Come in, human." He could probably detect me by my breathing patterns alone, or maybe that eye of his could see through the door. I eased open the door. The room was similar to mine in shape, but was bedecked in hues of orange and red and gold, with faint traces of green and brown, like being in an autumn wood. But while my room was all softness and grace, his was marked with ruggedness. In lieu of a pretty breakfast table by the window, a worn work table dominated the space, covered in various weapons. It was there he sat, wearing only a white shirt and trousers, his red hair unbound and gleaming like liquid fire. Tamlin's court-trained emissary, but a warrior in his own right. "I haven't seen you around," I said, shutting the door and leaning against it. "I had to go sort out some hotheads on the northern border. Official emissary business," he said, setting down the hunting knife he'd been cleaning, a long, vicious blade. "I got back in time to hear your little spat with Tam and decided I was safer up here. I'm glad to hear your human heart has warmed to me, though. At least I'm not on the top of your killing list." I gave him a long look. "Well," he went on, shrugging, "it seems that you managed to get under Tam's fur enough that he sought me out and nearly bit my head off. So I suppose I can thank you for ruining what should have been a peaceful lunch. Thankfully for me, there's been a disturbance out in the western forest, and my poor friend had to go deal with it in that way only he can. I'm surprised you didn't run into him on the stairs." Thank the forgotten gods for some small mercies. "What sort of disturbance?" Lucian shrugged, but the movement was too tense to be careless. "The usual sort. Unwanted, nasty creatures raising hell." Good. Good that Tamlin was away and wouldn't be here to catch me in what I planned to do. Another bit of luck. "I'm impressed you answered me that much," I said as casually as I could, thinking through my words. "But it's too bad you're not like the Suriel, spouting any information I want if I'm clever enough to snare you." For a moment he blinked at me. Then his mouth twisted to the side, and that metal eye whizzed and narrowed on me. "I suppose you won't tell me what you want to know." "You have your secrets, and I have mine," I said carefully. I couldn't tell whether he would try to convince me otherwise if I told him the truth. "But if you were a Suriel," I added with deliberate slowness, in case he hadn't caught my meaning, "how exactly would I trap you?" Lucian set down the knife and picked at his nails. For a moment, I wondered if he would tell me anything at all. Wondered if he would go right to Tamlin and tattle. But then he said, "I'd probably have a weakness for groves of young birch trees in the western woods, and freshly slaughtered chickens, and would probably be so greedy that I wouldn't notice the double loop snare rigged around the grove to pin my legs in place." I didn't dare ask why he had decided to be accommodating. There was still a good chance he wouldn't mind seeing me dead, but I would risk it. "I somehow prefer you as High Fae." He smirked, but the amusement was short-lived. "If I were insane and stupid enough to go after a Suriel, I'd also take a bow and quiver, and maybe a knife, just like this one." He sheathed the knife he'd cleaned and set it down at the edge of the table, an offering. And I'd be prepared to run like hell when I freed it, to the nearest running water which they hate crossing. But you're not insane, so you'll be here, safe and sound? I'll be conveniently hunting on the grounds, and with my superior hearing, I might be feeling generous enough to listen if someone screams from the western woods. But it's a good thing I had no role in telling you to go out today, since Tam would eviscerate anyone who told you how to trap a Suriel. And it's a good thing I had planned to hunt anyway, because if anyone caught me helping you, there would be trouble of a whole other hell awaiting us. I hope your secrets are worth it. He said it with his usual grin, but there was an edge to it, a warning I didn't miss. Another riddle, and another bit of information. I said, "It's a good thing that while you have superior hearing, I possess superior abilities to keep my mouth shut." He snorted as I took the knife from the table and turned to procure the bow from my room. "I think I'm starting to like you, for a murdering human." Chapter 14. Western woods. Grove of young birch trees. Slaughtered chicken. Double loop snare. Close to running water. I repeated Lucian's instructions as I walked out of the manor, through the cultivated gardens, across the wild, rolling, grassy hills beyond them, over clear streams and into the spring woods beyond. No one had stopped me. No one had even been around to see me leave, bow and quiver across my back, Lucian's knife at my side. I lugged along a satchel stuffed with a freshly dead chicken, courtesy of the baffled kitchen staff, and had tucked an extra blade into my boot. The lands were as empty as the manor itself, though I occasionally glimpsed something shining in the corner of my eye. Every time I turned to look, the shimmering transformed into the sunlight dancing on a nearby stream, or the wind fluttering the leaves of a lone sycamore atop a knoll. As I passed a large pond nestled at the foot of a towering hill, I could have sworn I saw 4 shining female heads poking up from the bright water, watching me. I hurried my steps. Only birds and the chittering and rustle of small animals sounded as I entered the still green western forest. I'd never ridden through these woods on my hunts with Lucian. There was no path here, nothing tame about it. Oaks, elms, and beeches intertwined in a thick weave, almost strangling the trickle of sunlight that crept in through the dense canopy. The moss-covered earth swallowed any sound I made. Old. This forest was ancient and alive in a way that I couldn't describe but could only feel deep in the marrow of my bones. Perhaps I was the first human in 500 years to walk beneath those heavy, dark branches, to inhale the freshness of spring leaves masking the damp, thick rot. Birch trees. Running water. I made my way through the woods, breath tight in my throat. Night was the dangerous time, I reminded myself. I had only a few hours until sunset. Even if the bog had stalked us in the daylight. The bog was dead, and whatever horror Tamlin was now dealing with dwelled in another part of these lands, the Spring Court. I wondered in what ways Tamlin had to answer to its High Lord, or if it was his High Lord who had carved out Lucian's eye. Maybe it was the High Lord's consort, the she whom Lucian had mentioned, that instilled such fear in them. I pushed away the thought. I kept my steps light, my eyes and ears open, and my heartbeat steady. Shortcomings or no, I could still hunt, and the answers I needed were worth it. I found a glen of young, skinny birch trees, then stalked in ever-widening circles until I encountered the nearest stream. Not deep, but so wide that I'd have to take a running leap to cross it. Lucian had said to find running water, and this was close enough to make escape possible. If I needed to escape. Hopefully I wouldn't. I traced and then retraced several different routes to the stream, and a few alternate routes, should my access to it somehow be blocked. And when I was sure of every root and rock and hollow in the surrounding area, I returned to the small clearing encircled by those white trees and laid my snare. From my spot up in a nearby tree, a sturdy dense oak whose vibrant leaves hid me entirely from anyone below, I waited. And waited. The afternoon sun crept overhead, hot enough even through the canopy that I had to shrug off my cloak and roll up the sleeves of my tunic. My stomach grumbled, and I pulled a hunk of cheese out of my rucksack. Eating it would be quieter than the apple I'd also swiped from the kitchen on my way out. When I finished it off, I swigged water from the canteen I'd brought, parched from the heat. Did Tamlin or Lucian ever grow tired of day after day of eternal spring, or ever venture into the other territories, if only to experience a different season? I wouldn't have minded endless mild spring while looking after my family. Winter brought us dangerously close to death every year. But if I were immortal, I might want a little variation to pass the time. I'd probably want to do more than lurk about a manor house, too. Though I still hadn't worked up the nerve to make the request that had crept into the back of my mind when I saw the mural. I moved about as much as I dared on the branch, only to keep the blood flowing to my limbs. I'd just settled in again when a ripple of silence came toward me, as if the wood thrushes and squirrels and moths held their breath while something passed by. My bow was already strung. Quietly, I loosely nocked an arrow. Closer and closer the silence crept. The trees seemed to lean in, their entwined branches locking tighter, a living cage keeping even the smallest of birds from soaring out of the canopy. Maybe this had been a very bad idea. Maybe Lucian had overestimated my abilities, or maybe he had been waiting for the chance to lead me to my doom. My muscles strained from holding still atop the branch, but I kept my balance and listened. Then I heard it. A whisper, as if cloth were dragging over root and stone, a hungry wheezing sniffing from the nearby clearing. I'd laid my snares carefully, making the chicken look as if it had wandered too far and snapped its own neck as it sought to free itself from a fallen branch. I'd taken care to keep my own scent off the bird as much as possible. But these fairies had such keen senses, and even though I'd covered my tracks, there was a snap, a whoosh, and a hollowed-out, wicked scream that made my bones and muscles and breath lock up. Another enraged shriek pierced the forest, and my snares groaned as they held, and held, and held. I climbed out of the tree and went to meet the Suriel. Lucian, I decided as I crept up to the fairy in the birch glen, really, truly wanted me dead. I hadn't known what to expect as I entered the ring of white trees, tall and straight as pillars, but it was not the tall, thin, veiled figure in dark, tattered robes. Its hunched back facing me, I could count the hard knobs of its spine poking through the thin fabric. Spindly, scabby gray arms clawed at the snare with yellow, cracked fingernails. "Run," some primal, intrinsically human part of me whispered. Begged. "Run and never look back." But I kept my arrow loosely nocked. I said quietly, "Are you one of the Suriel?" The fairy went rigid and sniffed. Once, twice. Then slowly it turned to me, the dark veil draped over its bald head blowing in a phantom breeze. A face that looked like it had been crafted from dried, weather-worn bone, its skin either forgotten or discarded, a lipless mouth, and 2 long teeth held by blackened gums, slitted holes for nostrils, and eyes that were nothing more than swirling pits of milky white. The white of death, the white of sickness, the white of clean-picked corpses. Peeking above the ragged neck of its dark robes was a body of veins and bones, as dried and solid and horrific as the texture of its face. It let go of the snare, and its 2 long fingers clicked against each other as it studied me. "Human?" it said, and its voice was at once one and many, old and young, beautiful and grotesque. My bowels turned watery. "Did you set this clever, wicked trap for me?" "Are you one of the Suriel?" I asked again, my words scarcely more than a ragged breath. "Indeed, I am." Click, click, click went its fingers against each other, one for each word. "Then the trap was for you," I managed. "Run, run, run!" It remained sitting, its bare, gnarled feet caught in my snares. "I have not seen a human woman for an age. Come closer, so I might look upon my captor." I did no such thing. It let out a huffing, awful laugh. "And which of my brethren betrayed my secrets to you?" "None of them. My mother told me stories of you." "Lies. I can smell the lies on your breath." It sniffed again, its fingers clacking together. It cocked its head to the side, an erratic, sharp movement, the dark veil snapping with it. "What would a human woman want from the Suriel?" "You tell me," I said softly. It let out another low laugh. "A test? A foolish and useless test, for if you dare to capture me, then you must want knowledge very badly." I said nothing, and it smiled with that lipless mouth, its grayed teeth horrifically large. "Ask me your questions, human, and then free me." I swallowed hard. Is there truly no way for me to go home?" "Not unless you seek to be killed, and your family with you. You must remain here." Whatever last shred of hope I'd been clinging to, whatever foolish optimism shriveled and died, this changed nothing. Before my fight with Tamlin that morning, I hadn't even entertained the idea anyway. Perhaps I'd only come here out of spite. So, fine. If I was here facing sure death, then I might as well learn something. "What do you know about Tamlin?" "More specific, human. Be more specific. For I know a good many things about the High Lord of the Spring Court." The earth tilted beneath me. Tamlin is a High Lord?" Click, click, click. "You did not know. Interesting. Not just some petty fairy lord of a manor, but a High Lord of one of the 7 territories, a High Lord of Prithian." "Did you also not know that this is the Spring Court, little human?" Yes, I knew about that." The Suriel settled on the ground. "Spring, summer, autumn, winter, dawn, day, and night," it mused, as if I hadn't even answered. "The 7 courts of Prithian, each ruled by a High Lord, all of them deadly in their own way. They are not merely powerful, They are power. That was why Tamlin had been able to face the bog and live. High Lord. I tucked away my fear. Everyone at the spring court is stuck wearing a mask, and yet you aren't, I said cautiously. Are you not a member of the court? I am a member of no court. I am older than the High Lords, older than Prithian, older than the bones of this world. Lucian had definitely overestimated my abilities. And what can be done about this blight that has spread in Prithian, stealing and altering the magic? Where did it come from? Stay with the High Lord, human, the Suriel said. That's all you can do. You will be safe. Do not interfere. Do not go looking for answers after today, or you will be devoured by the shadow over Prithian. He will shield you from it, so stay close to him, and all will be righted. That wasn't exactly an answer. I repeated. Where did the blight come from? Those milky eyes narrowed. The High Lord does not know that you came here today, does he? Does not know that his human woman came to trap a Suriel because he cannot give her the answers she seeks. But it is too late, human, for the High Lord, for you, perhaps for your realm as well. Despite all that it had said, despite its order to stop asking questions and stay with Tamlin, it was his human woman that echoed in my head, that made me clench my teeth. But the Suriel went on. Across the violent western sea, there is another fairy kingdom called Highburn, ruled by a wicked, powerful king. Yes, a king, he said when I raised a brow. Not a High Lord. There his territory is not divided into courts. There he is law unto himself. Humans no longer exist in that realm, though his throne is made of their bones. That large island I'd seen on the map, the one that hadn't yielded any lands to humans after the treaty, and a throne of bones. The cheese I'd eaten turned leaden in my stomach. For some time now, the King of Highburn has found himself unhappy with the treaty the other ruling High Fae of the world made with you humans long ago. He resents that he was forced to sign it, to let his mortal slaves go, and to remain confined to his damp green isle at the edge of the world. And so, 100 years ago, he dispatched his most trusted and loyal commanders, his deadliest warriors, remnants of the ancient armies that he once sailed to the continent to wage such a brutal war against you humans, all of them as hungry and vile as he. As spies and courtiers and lovers, they infiltrated the various High Fae courts and kingdoms and empires around the world for 50 years, and when they had gathered enough information, he made his plan. But nearly 5 decades ago, one of his commanders disobeyed him. The Deceiver. And the Suriel straightened. We are not alone. I drew my bow farther, but kept it pointed at the ground as I scanned the trees. But everything had already gone silent in the presence of the Suriel. Human, you must free me and run, it said, those death-filled eyes widening. Run for the High Lord's manor. Do not forget what I told you. Stay with the High Lord and live to see everything righted. What is it? If I knew what came, I could stand a better chance of the Naga. Fairies made of shadow and hate and rot. They heard my scream, and they smelled you. Free me, human. They will cage me if they catch me here. Free me, and return to the High Lord's side. Shit. I lunged for the snare, making to put away my bow and grab my knife. but 4 shadowy figures slipped through the birch trees, so dark that they seemed made from a starless night.
Ooh. All right. Well, that was chapters 13 and 14. Hope you guys enjoyed that in today's episode. That's going to be it for me for today. I'm going to close this out quickly and promptly so you guys can get back to your day. Love you all. I'll see you on Sunday for another exciting episode. Peace.